That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Nightwatch, Demons Are Forever. the 11th film directed by Ole...
Did you want to say Diamonds Are Forever?
I did. The 11th film directed by Ole Bornedal, which premiered at the 2023 BFI London Film Festival. Shudder is releasing it May 17th, 2024.
What is this director known for?
Well, he's probably best known for his other Nightwatch films. His debut was Nightwatch in 1994, of which this is a sequel to. He remade his own film in English, starring Ewan McGregor, in 1997. You've actually seen a couple of his films. I think one of the very first film festivals I dragged you to, we saw Just Another Love Story, which might be my favorite of his. Deliver Us from Evil, which is kind of a Straw Dogs type rehash. The Substitute, which also stars Paprika Steen, which is bizarre and interesting. And you've also seen The Possession, the Sam Raimi produced 2012 thriller with Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Kira Sedgwick.
Oh, wow. Okay. What is Nightwatch Demons Are Forever about? Martin's daughter, Emma, takes up a night watch job to find out what happened to her parents almost 30 years ago. A meeting with Wörmer in his cell pulls the serial killer out of his coma and sets in motion a chain of fateful events. That's not the best premise, but...
Not really, no.
What's your pull quote?
A bizarre psychodrama sequel trying to say something about trauma in the most inaccurate sort of way. It's unclear who this film's intended to please.
Mine. Is Nightwatch Demons Are Forever ridiculous? Yes. Did I enjoy watching it? Yes. Yeah, this story is out of control.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first film is about a guy played by Nikolaj Coster-Waldau, and he works at a morgue, like the graveyard shift, just kind of monitoring the building.
He's the Nightwatch.
He's the Nightwatch. And he's there with his girlfriend, and they're doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. And in the background, we see that there's a serial killer, last name Wörmer. Wörmer. Who is killing prostitutes and scalping them. And he happens to also be a cop. And this cop, serial killer, used to work at this morgue as the Nightwatch person. But he got fired for his love of necrophilia.
Don't know how he was able to get a job on the police force after that, but
after he was fired, and now that he's a cop and a serial killer, he still lingers around the morgue. And so the first film from 1994 focuses on Nikolaj Coster-Waldau and his girlfriend being terrorized by the serial killer. But ultimately they escape with the help of two more friends. So this film picks up 30 years later. Nikolaj had a child with his girlfriend, who's from the first movie, who's played by...
Fanny Leander Bornedal, the daughter of the director.
The daughter of this director?
Yes.
Was the girlfriend from the first movie?
Is the star of this film, is the daughter.
Oh, no, I was talking about the girlfriend.
Oh, Kalinka, she did.
She's dead in this movie, so she didn't come back. But she committed suicide, assuming she had mental health issues related to the trauma of that night 30 years ago. And Nikolaj is fully traumatized, pill popping and crazy. But he has this daughter whose name you just said, Emma. She's a med student. And she can see that her dad is deeply troubled, but doesn't know why. And one day, she's rummaging through her mom's old effects and finds some newspaper clippings that tell the story of her mom and dad on that night. And instead of asking her dad, like, hey, what's up with that? This girl gets a job at the morgue, the same morgue as the Nightwatch person. So the same job her dad had that traumatized him, she gets it. And immediately the person training her tells her all about it. Like, oh yeah, those two fools were terrorized, but they escaped. And she's like, oh, well, who killed Wörmer? And the lady's like, what makes you think he's dead? He's not dead. He's at an insane asylum. So what does this stupid girl do? She decides that she's going to go, like, basically confront Wörmer and maybe do, like, exposure therapy with her dad. We have to talk about the psychology of all of this, but she gets in by faking being, like, a PhD student. And she confronts Wörmer, who's now blind. That's why I don't know why the premise said he's in a coma. He's awake, but he's blind and harmless, we're told. And she records him for her dad. Like, see, Dad, look at him. He ain't shit. He can't even see. He's not going to hurt you. Why are you still afraid of him? And then she spits in that man's face.
Mm-hmm. And then steals some stuff from him, photographs.
Steals some of his effects. Okay. So while this is happening, so the 4 people who were there that night 30 years ago are Nikolaj, his girlfriend, his best friend who saved him by shooting Wörmer.
Jens, played by Kim Bodnia.
And then the girlfriend Lotte. Mm-hmm. Okay, so now there are 3 people left alive 30 years later. And we see the lady Lotte get killed.
Mm-hmm. She's a vicar. They're also the godparents of Emma.
And they're the godparents of Emma. And we see that whomever killed her is like a copycat killer of Wörmer, but he's being helped by this little redheaded twink.
Named Bent.
So we know that it's not this twink doing it. It's this person wearing a Wörmer mask. So it's like, well, who could this be? So at first we think maybe it's Wörmer's son because we see a picture of his child. So we're thinking, and then the psychiatrist, Wörmer's psychiatrist, is telling Emma, well, you know, children of victims become victims and children of executioners become executioners. So maybe we need to get into all of that. But so then as an audience, we're like, well, maybe it's his son. Then there's this cop, this lady you recognize.
Paprika Steen, huge actress in Denmark.
She's acting real aggro towards Emma, which I don't blame her because Emma's kind of stupid. So then you start thinking, well, maybe she's
like, are you crazy like your father?
But the gag is, the photograph we see of Wörmer's son, this little boy, that's not a boy. That's a girl. He just buzzed the hair off. So then we find out that the psychiatrist caring for Wörmer in this insane asylum is his daughter.
And that is also a very well-known actress, Sonia Richter. Mm-hmm.
And she's disgruntled because at a point early on in the film, she tells Emma, like, you know, you need to think about what you've done, and you're so concerned about your dad like he's the victim. But in crimes like these, there are other victims. Like this serial killer had a family, and their lives were destroyed because of what he did. So you're not even considering them and what you're doing by reigniting all this nonsense. So it's the daughter, the psychiatrist, who's killing all. She kills 2 people. She kills Lotte and
Jens,
the godfather. So the film ends with a showdown between Nikolaj and his daughter Emma against the psychiatrist. And technically Wörmer, but he's like blind and harmless.
Yeah.
And there's more that happens, but of course, Wörmer and his daughter end up getting killed by Nikolaj and his daughter. And then the final scene of the film is Nikolaj and his daughter with her 3 friends at the beach. Just like having a, like Sheryl Crow.
Carousing, soak up the sun.
Soaking up the sun. The end. This shit was crazy.
Yeah.
The most crazy part of it, and I know I manifested talking to a therapist about Neil Brennan's podcast. I would love to see therapists review this film.
Oh, from the very first time we hear Sonia Richter speak, I'm like, God, that sounds wrong.
The psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's just saying things that a psychiatrist would not be telling. It's not even her patient. It's like she also wants to take on, she tells Emma, oh, I'll be your dad's doctor.
Because by extension, I should be, because I'm involved.
He's part of my case.
Wörmer's case.
Oh, okay. But even before that, Emma, who I would presume is a smart person because she's in medical school, but she doesn't seem that smart. She keeps asking her dad, related to her mom committing suicide, do I have the suicide gene?
And
how many times does she say that?
Several times. And also, why would he have the answer?
And then Nikolaj's profession, I believe, is an attorney.
Yeah, because in the first film, he's in law school.
So don't you think that you as the training medical doctor would maybe know more about psychology and genetics than your like mentally ill litigating father? I don't understand.
You'd think, and also the correct terminology, like depression. You know, depression is inherited.
Oh, I thought that was so crazy.
And also, if she's really that concerned, maybe going back to her grandparents and what they might have suffered from as well. Like, she just keeps confronting her dad over...
We'll get to them, but every scene in this movie is nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
There's something about every scene that's like, that's not right. That doesn't make sense. Why are they doing that?
And granted, some of those scenes are supposed to be to trigger us knowing that something is wrong, but even the things that are not supposed to be wrong are
It's so heavy-handed that it actually in the end works, because I couldn't call who I thought the killer was. Like, I kept going back and forth. Like, is it this person? Is it this person? Because you think it would either be the supposed son, who then we find out is a daughter, and then we find out is a psychiatrist, the cop. And then for a minute I thought, is it Nikolaj? Like, is he so demented now? But here, I'm just going to go through my notes. So Emma has a boyfriend.
Frederik.
And at first he annoyed me because he seemed like one of those privileged alpha kids who's like, you know, just a gunner and no one can tell him shit. And we first are introduced to him because they're in like anatomy lecture where the doctor is like trying to tell a story about this cadaver in front of them. And Emma and her boyfriend and their other friend are being obnoxious. And then they're giggling. And the doctor goes, "What's so funny?" "Oh, we just said a little joke." "Well, tell us the joke. Like, tell the whole class the joke, the entire class." And this boy, the boyfriend, that joke he told was so long
and he tells
and
it
not
with
funny.
Such gusto.
And it's like, that was so stupid. But it amounts to a joke about fingering a cadaver. And then the teacher, the doctor, professor, he's like, "Oh, since you think that's so funny, why don't we play that game?" And the doctor supposedly shoves his finger up the cadaver's ass and makes the student, the boyfriend, suck the finger.
Choose which finger.
Choose which finger is the dirty finger. And then in the end, he goes, "Of course I didn't do it." But I just thought even that scene is like, all of this is just so nonsensical. So I was assuming you rewatched the first movie.
I'd actually never seen the original Danish language. I've seen the one with Ewan McGregor and Patricia Arquette.
So I watched you watch some of it, and I assumed that this, first of all, I think it's really cool because this is like a true sequel.
Yeah.
Like, it has the original people, a story that makes sense 30 years later, but to a degree.
Yeah.
But I was assuming that we were going to spend more time related to like the effects of trauma. And we were going to really dig into how the daughter learns about her mom and dad's experience. No. She shows up to that morgue, and this very interesting looking lady who's training her, who I kind of liked, she just tells her immediately. Because Emma goes, "Oh, do you know about those two people who were terrorized by the serial killer?"
Boyfriend and girlfriend. Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh yeah, girl, everybody knows about that. This is the room they were terrorized in." And like, she just told the full story. Again, keeping in mind that instead of Emma asking her dad, "Is this you and what happened?" she just goes, gets a job and tries to do her own spelunking to get information. But she goes back home, and the scene where she tells her dad, because he goes, "Where were you?" "Oh, I got a job." "Where are you working?" "Oh, at the morgue is the Nightwatch." The look on Nikolaj Coster-Waldau's face was priceless. That was a really good scene.
It's so dramatic. Like, and that's it. He didn't say anything. Also, that scene where she's being trained, and when she asks about the job with the doctor, who's also in the first film.
The professor guy.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
She asks, who kind of antagonized her dad, she asks about the new Nightwatch position. He goes, "Oh, now it's called ward clerk." But that is how the job's being explained to her is it's similar beat by beat to a scene in the first film when he's also introduced to it, including like, how did you get in here? The door should be locked.
So when she gets the job, like the person training her is like, "Okay, well, here's where everything is, and here's a flashlight because at night we turn off all the lights to save energy. So good luck." And what's the first thing Emma does? Put on headphones and is like gonna walk around this dark, scary place so she can't hear what's going on around her. But I'm glad she did because I really liked the soundtrack. There were some really good songs in this movie.
Music plays a significant role as well, because I guess Wörmer is addicted to listening to pop music on repeat.
Yes. Okay, well, let's get to Wörmer. So when Emma's able to get into the insane asylum because her boyfriend pretends to be like a big shot and calls the hospital saying like, "Oh, I have a PhD student who needs to do research on Wörmer." And they go, "Yeah, come on down, girl."
Which is very much like Robert Durst and the woman that he murdered pretending to be his wife.
In The Jinx.
Yeah.
Oh, we're watching season 2 of The Jinx. So when she gets there, the young man who's like the attendee or what do you call them in the... Like the attendant? They're not called attendants. The people who usually strap the crazy people into the straitjackets. They have names.
It's not attendant?
No.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, the way Emma's talking to him, she's using words like loonies and crazy.
Yes.
And it's like, you're supposed to be like a PhD student studying psychology, and this is the way you speak.
Yeah,
But I knew
no red flags.
So I knew something was wrong from that. But then also he goes, "Oh, this is Wörmer's room. Here you go. Just close the door behind you. And here's a little clicker like the one Rachel Marin had in The Bodyguard." And she's like, "Wait, you're not gonna like you're not gonna stay here? No, he's harmless. He's blind. He doesn't do shit." That's when I knew, like, okay, this is something's afoot.
But then she's grilling him, and then come to find she wanted to be alone with him so she could film him and demean him.
Right, so it's confused. Again, every scene doesn't quite make sense, but then it had me on my toes.
And then she just put on glasses to look older.
Yeah. So I think it's funny, and you had pointed this out to me, the transition for this character of Wörmer, because he originally is working as the night ward in a morgue, and he's having sex with the dead bodies. Mm-hmm. And then he gets fired, becomes a cop. Now he's killing prostitutes and scalping them.
Because now he's obsessed with hair.
And then in this movie, we see that as Emma's rummaging through his stuff in his room, we see that he has like a hair color swatch sample book. So I guess he must like to feel the hair. Mm-hmm. And he even has a lunchbox filled with scalped heads. But it's like, how'd you go from wanting to have sex with dead people to now you really like because he even has a moment where he's talking about how he likes certain textures of hair because they smell cleaner or something.
But did nobody search his belongings? That nobody regularly looks at the things he has to see that he has a lunchbox full of scalps?
Well, when we realize that the person in charge of him is his daughter, then it makes sense that he's able to get
Sure, but she wasn't immediately in charge of him 30 years ago.
Sure.
He had this lunchbox this whole time.
Okay, after Emma leaves Wörmer, she's upset because he kind of attacks her, but like creeps her out, doesn't really hurt her. So of course the psychiatrist is like, what the hell's going on? I could have you arrested. You're not even a real PhD student. You recorded him. You spit on him. She's like upset.
But she explains that she's the daughter of Martin and Kalinka, who he tried to kill.
So then the psychiatrist is really interested in her. It's like, oh, give your dad my number. And she's very specific, like, do not show your dad this video. Do not tell him about what happened because he could go into crisis mode. So really what you need to do is get him with a therapist, i.e. me, and I can help,
Because when you interrupt cognitive therapy like that, she
oh
says,
my God. I really would love a therapist to comment on how this is approached. But what does Emma's dumbass do when she gets home? She tells her dad, oh, I met Wörmer.
No, she doesn't tell him when she
doesn't tell him that.
It's
she
even more odd.
It's more extreme. She doesn't tell him immediately, but then he confronts her.
They're in an anatomy lab.
Well, first of all, he's like, why are you working? Well, I need money because your bum ass doesn't work. You don't even get benefits. So I don't even understand Nikolaj's character. Like, did he ever practice law and then went loony and now he's just living off of whatever? But he's like, well, I can get us money. So then later on in the film, they're in like anatomy lab dissecting cadavers. And who walks in? Nikolaj, the dad.
Making a ruckus though, like, where's Emma? Do you see
Causing
Emma?
a scene almost. Because he's like...
Can you just look? That's like when people walk into a grocery store. Where's the steak? I don't know. Did you look at the section where those are? Did
you didn't even walk in the direction of the meats before you asked. So he does that. And then he seems inebriated or under the influence of like pills. Because the daughter keeps saying, how many pills did you take? Again, as a medical student, she seems so like not specific. But he interrupts lab, causes a scene, and like gives her money. Like, you don't have to worry about money anymore. I sold your mom's watch and I can sell our car. And she's not, and the teacher's like, everyone leave. So they're in the lecture hall, which has a big screen for instruction, right? And this is when Emma goes, well, I need you to know that I visited Wörmer and I recorded it. And she plays the shit on the big screen.
On the biggest screen possible, yes.
And so, of course, he's wrecked. I just thought she's so bad at sharing information in general.
That was a staple of the first film, though. It's like people did not know how to communicate effectively. That's what made it kind of the original films I find frustrating.
We need to talk about the twink, the redhead, because I thought he was quite effective. He was very creepy. The film opens with him being interrogated, and he's like acting weird. He refers to everyone in the third person by using
He calls everyone it.
It. Mm-hmm. Which was creepy. Mm-hmm. And we see him like bust his head against a two-way mirror. We see that he's assisting whomever is doing the killing, like the priest lady, Lotte. He's there. And that's kind of creepy because she calls Nikolaj's character and leaves a voicemail saying like, hey, someone weird visited me related to Wörmer. And then she gets killed while she's leaving the voicemail. And then this is like all of a sudden, the Godfather shows up. What's his name again?
Jens, played by Kim Bodnia.
But we're told he's in Thailand.
Yes, he was in Thailand. He's probably best known for Nicholas Winding Refn's Pusher trilogy, but yeah.
So I thought that was strange that he just pops up. But also on that night, Emma asked, like, she wanted the night off, so she asked her homegirl to like work her shift, which was so crazy to be like, your friend doesn't work here. She can't just pick up a shift, but she does, or they do, because I think that character's non-binary.
Maria.
So Maria works the shift, and what do we see? Which probably relates to the first film. Maria and her two friends, the boyfriend and her boyfriend, Emma's boyfriend and Maria's boyfriend, they're like full-on partying at the morgue.
They have a lot to drink.
They have a full bar on the counter and like music blasting. Because isn't the first film like that where they're just doing stuff they're not supposed to be doing?
Yes, having sex in the morgue. That's why there's semen on the floor that gets him hemmed up in the original.
So it appears that Nikolaj's character hasn't spoken to the buddy who saved him, Jens, in a long time. Like they're estranged, but he shows up because Lotte, his ex, died or was killed. And they have this weird scene where they go to dinner and like cry it out. And then even more strangely, the two of them end up at a soccer field, like in a very nice indoor soccer field. They start kicking the ball and then they get kicked out. And then as Jens is leaving, he gets killed by the copycat killer.
Who just walked by and slits his throat.
Which was kind of creepy. Like it just very casually walks by and slits his throat and keeps it moving. These generalizations about suicide being hereditary,
women,
children with no fathers have issues.
Yeah,
that we're told that women are more vengeful than men. Like
that tracks. Women are more vengeful than men. Yeah, and they're like 80% of children without father figures have severe dysfunction. Like, whoa.
So at a point, the twink kidnaps Maria, the non-binary person, because the twink thinks that Maria is Emma. And I thought that was kind of a fun scene, but kind of corny, that Maria seduces the twink.
Well, she's singing to him like a maternal figure.
Like, is he that dumb that they can lull him into submission? And then Maria strangles the twink with a chain.
And then her phone is close by enough that she is able to get it when it starts ringing. When
she's able to tell Siri to pick up the phone.
Yes.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, Emma has not checked on her friend who worked her shift last night. But anyway, and then the first thing Maria says is, "I think you and your father are in danger." That's the
bitch. I'm in danger.
I am holed up. Track my phone.
I'm being held captive. Give me some help. Well, at least we know Maria's not like selfish and self-centered, I guess. I don't know. But she's also bad. They're also bad at self-preservation. So then the final act is Nikolaj and Emma at the insane asylum. And they get locked in. And the psychiatrist, the daughter, she drugs Nikolaj with a paralytic. So he can't move, but he can feel and he's aware. And she wheels him into Wörmer's cell so that Wörmer can scalp him, which was creepy.
It's kind of like one of those scenes in an old vampire movie. The old blind vampire has to hobble next to his chained up prey.
Yes, exactly. But then Emma's there and the psychiatrist is chasing her. And that was such a weird scene because the paralytic wears off on Nikolaj, which was confusing to me. Like, the psychiatrist should know dosing, and was she going to just periodically like give him another dose to keep him paralyzed? Or did she think the dad was going to kill him faster? But either way, the psychiatrist is too busy chasing Emma. But it was such a ridiculous scene because the psychiatrist is creeping around like she's being discreet. Stealthy. But then she's wearing heels on hardwood floor or hard flooring. So all you hear is click-clacking. And then she kills everyone with a box cutter. So she's scraping the walls with a box cutter.
And she keeps running it back and forth. So it's
clicking it.
It almost sounds like a rattlesnake.
Like a rattlesnake. Yeah. So I didn't understand, like, do you think you're going to creep up on Emma?
I was
because you're not.
She sure is confident that she just needs to handle this.
Yeah. So I thought the way Nikolaj, because Nikolaj is able to get feeling back, so he's able to kill Wörmer, and it's so uneventful. He basically takes a knife and just goes, boom. So gentle.
Up through his soft palate, yeah.
It was like cutting like the cranberry sauce in the can on the ridge. Like you just go, whoop, just like that. And then Emma shoots and kills the psychiatrist.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
We also need to bring up during anatomy lab, it would appear that they're all working on different body parts, which makes no sense.
That was weird. Yeah.
And some of the students are being quite rough.
Well, just unprofessional.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being in that environment, like in that program, in that environment, and acting the way they're acting and not getting reprimanded.
Yeah, again, kind of like the first film. There's some things that just don't make any sense, but even more so in this 30 years on sequel that I don't know why.
I do appreciate that it's consistent in how like nonsensical it is to a degree, and I like weird things, and I will say it did keep my attention the entire time. Like I was very curious as to like who's doing the killing. I can't quite call it. I liked how the film looked. Mm-hmm. It had an interesting vibe.
It was shot by Lasse Frank Johansson. But it also doesn't really work for me.
Oh, what would you give Nightwatch Demons Are Forever?
I would give it 2.5 out of 5, and I think that's being on the nice end. I mean, this used to be a filmmaker I really look forward to his stuff, so this was kind of disappointing. And we didn't even talk about the title.
Oh.
Demons Are Forever, which must be talking about inherited trauma.
I think the better title would have been Nightwatch Trauma. But...
familial trauma. Yeah. Trauma Zone.
Trauma Zone, yeah. I would give this film 2.5 out of 5. But I do think it's worth a watch. Anything else?
No.
Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.